Welcome to the next video in the series, and today we are going to talk about Azure Application Gateway features. Yes, this is our topic for the today, and we will try to understand each and every feature that Azure Application Gateway offers with the help of our design or a diagram. Yeah, so let's get started. So what we have? We have application gateway. Let's suppose this is our application gateway. All right, this is our app gateway. Now, and these are the backend Azure resources, which is configured as a backend of the application gateway. What are these resources? These are, let's suppose, virtual machines. Okay, and this is pool one, and maybe these are app services in pool two. All right. So just label them for our understanding. VM, and this is pool 1. This is pool 2, and these are app services. App and app. Alright, and these two are configured as the backend of the application gateway. Okay, so what are these? These are backend. An application gateway has something called front end, which is the IP address, right? So let us make this is front end IP address. And just for the sake of understanding, we have our user sitting somewhere trying to access the website that we are hosting on the back end and accessing via application gateway. Now we have the proper scenario in front of us. And let's try to understand each of the feature with the help of the architecture that we have right now in place. So the very first feature is SSL or TLS termination. Okay, this is the first feature. What it does, application gateway supports this SSL termination or TLS termination. So what exactly it means? It means when this guy tried to access the application, for example, abc.com, the request will go on HTTPS, which is encrypted. Let's say this is encrypted. Now, what app gateway does? It can unencrypt it. Okay. Here in the app gateway, it has this feature of SSL termination. So this encrypted traffic or request that comes, it can easily decrypt it. And if it decrypts it, it can send the decrypted traffic to the backend, or it can encrypt it again, decrypt, or maybe it can encrypt it again as per the requirement of the solution. So this feature allows the web servers to be unburdened from the costly encryption and decryption overhead, because in order to do this encryption and decryption, there is something called CPU cycles. They use CPU cycles, right? So with SSL termination, application gateway decrypts SSL traffic, decrypts SSL traffic at the gateway level. That's why we are trying to do it here at the gateway level. Now backend receives unencrypted HTTP traffic. Okay, so HTTPS comes, decryption happens, and HTTP will go to VM. Now, no need to decrypt and encrypt again, right? So the backend receives unencrypted HTTP traffic. So, well, we are getting reduced CPU load on the backend VM, which will definitely improves the performance, right? And what could be the, like, if you talk about pros and cons, this is the pros. We are getting high performance and less CPU load on the backend. What about the con? For every aspect, everything you do, there is a consequences, right? The logic of karma. All right, so traffic between gateway and backend is unencrypted now. This traffic, this is HTTP, is unencrypted now. And as per the requirement, not, this will not be accepted by all kind of application, right? Most of the application, it is absolutely fine because app gateway, because this entire thing is on, where it is happening on Azure itself. Right. So once the traffic is there inside the Azure through the app gateway, it is fine. It is on the backend. However, there are some compliance where end-to-end encryption is needed. What is needed? End-to-end encryption, which is like request will be HTTPS, okay, and it will go HTTPS, and it will be there on the receiving end at the HTTPS as well. All right. So what do we call it? We call it end-to-end encryption. End-to-end encryption, which is also possible on application gateway. So for complete security, end-to-end encryption, we need to do on application gateway. We need to meet the compliance, or if it is such regulation that we need to meet. The gateway decrypts because decryption capability is there. Look at the traffic, understand it, apply the WAF if it's there, right? Of course, and forward it to the backend server after re-encrypting it. So decryption happen, then re-encryption also can happen on the app gateway. But we can decide it. Do we want to decrypt and send unencrypted traffic to the backend because it is already there on Azure, or we would like to re-encrypt it and then send it to the VM? There is a trade-off. There is going to be trade-off that we need to understand, right? The pros would be it would be end-to-end encryption, right? Which was the con of the first point. So, but what would be the con? It will increase the processing overhead. AppGate will do utilize CPU cycles here, then VM also utilize. There is one place here the decryption happen, encryption happening again, then again decryption happening. So there is a processing overhead. But if it is mandatory or regulation, the compliance, then that's fine. If it is not, then HTTP is also fine because entire request is encrypted till here, right? Now, Azure lets you enforce custom SSL policies as well. Under SSL termination, we can also have custom SSL policies, and we can control the TLS versions, cipher suits, and even enforce the latest TLS, maybe 1.2 for enhanced security. We can choose that as well. Now, apart from this, App Gateway supports wildcard. Okay, wildcard. I'll explain it. Wildcard, if I could write, SAN certificate and integration with Azure Key Vault. All these things, these three things for the certificate, from the certificate perspective, can be done via App Gateway. I told you it is smart. It has so many features. Wildcard. So let's understand the wildcard. Wildcard is like a single certificate that secure multiple subdomains. Yes, it secures multiple subdomain, which will be like asterisk dot example dot com. So anything before dot example dot com would be acceptable by the single certificate. So the question is why we use it? Well, instead of managing multiple SSL certificates for each subdomain, we can just use one asterisk. It would be like if I could write here star.abc.com, right? So this is wildcard. Now, what is SEN certificate? SEN certificate is again a single certificate that secure multiple different domain names. Yes, wildcard is only for the subdomain, but SEN cert you can go with the different domains, not just subdomains. It would be like abc.com or xyz.com or oh, sorry, it would be like abc.com or you could place some 123.abc.com, 123.abc.com or .org like this, like different domains, not the subdomains. Why we use it? We need to understand this because if you have to manage multiple domains but want one certificate for all instead of separate ones, so single can do, then of course the management would be little easy. Now, what is this integration with the AKV, Azure Key Vault? It is because Key Vault securely stores and manages SSL TLS certificates. So that's why we use it. Automated certificate renewal, secure key storage, no manual uploads to application gateway. Right. This is what like application. This is Azure. We are understanding the Azure Key Vault. What is this? This is a vault where we store or manage our SSL certificate. It will allow us to automatically renew the certificate, secure key storage, and no manual uploads to App Gateway. It is all can happen through the portal as well. So how it works, we store SSL cert in the key vault, link it to the application gateway, and App Gateway automatically retrieves and renews the cert when needed. It is more or less like we have application gateway here in the Azure. This blue line representing Azure. Okay, this is our key vault, and here we have stored the SSL cert, and we link it with the app gateway. Right now, app gateway automatically retrieves and renews the cert when needed, and use it when needed. Right. So use wildcard certificates if you have many subdomains, SAN certificate to cover multiple different domains, and Key Vault to securely store, retrieve, and auto renew SSL certificate. So these all topics will come under SSL and TLS termination. This is the main topic, and these are the subtopics you could say. We are just trying to understand uh, all other aspect of TLS and SSL termination. So what is the next feature? Let's try to understand the next feature. So next feature is autoscaling. Okay, autoscaling. So what is autoscaling here? Who is scaling? Who is who is scaling? Well, this is application gateway, right? This is a resource, but the resource is backed by multiple VMs, and these VMs are managed by Azure. Okay, this is application gateway, right? These VMs right here. So auto scaling of these VMs, because we do not have the access to these VM, this is managed service application. We are just deploying a resource, but at the back end there are VMs, and these VMs has some capacity. So if a lot of requests are coming, a lot of encryption decryption is happening, the multiple sites we are hosting, so single VM cannot take care of the performance that is needed. So we need what? We need multiple VMs to do it, or we can have auto scaling. If required, we can have more VMs spin up at the back end, and scale in at the time when there is no need. So it will maintain the incoming and outgoing request. So auto scaling. This auto scaling is supported by App Gateways V2 standard V2 SKU, because Application Gateway V2 comes with the two App Gateway standard V2 comes with the two SKUs, basic, okay, basic, and this standard V2, standard and basic. These are the two SKUs comes under Application Gateway SKUs, SKUs. Okay. Now basic, it's in preview. I think, yeah, it is still in preview. The basic SKU is designed for application that have lower traffic. Okay, and don't need advanced traffic management features, right? We can have the understanding maybe later, or if you like, we can show you uh, app gateway, MS doc, application gateway documentation. Go to right here under application gateway, right here, basic and standard. Here is the feature comparison, right? It is not there for the AKS, TLS, proxy. All these things are not supported because it's basic. It is in preview, right? So basic SKU and standard V2. Standard V2 supports the auto scaling. That's the point. All right, this is second feature. Now let's try to understand the third feature. What is third feature? Third feature is geo redundancy or zone redundancy, not geo, zone, which means these VMs on which your application gateway is running, right? These VMs can be spin up into different zones. For example, this is in zone 1 and this is in zone 2, this is in zone 3, and accordingly, even if the scale out and scale in happens, it is happening as per the zones. So which will make it zone redundant. We can choose to make it zone redundant. This facility is there in the application gateway standard V2, standard V2. Right, static IP. Another feature is static IP. Application gateway standard V2, this one supports static VIP exclusively, which means the gateway 1 does not support it. I'll show you here. See, this is Azure Application Gateway V2, and under auto scaling, it says gateway V1 doesn't have the static VIP. Okay, so static VIP ensures that the VIP associated with the application gateway doesn't change for the life cycle of the deployment. Static IP. Now, another feature is very interesting, and I think we should have a proper video because it is very vast. It's a firewall. It is web application firewall. It's a service that provides centralized protection of your web application from common exploits and vulnerabilities. So we also have WAF. We can have WAF. We should make it red. We have WAF capabilities here. WAF capability. What exactly is a WAF? It is web application firewall. It is based on the rules of OWASP. What is OWASP? It is Open Web Application Security Project. So OWASP top 10 is already configured there, like all those vulnerabilities, exploits. And it also has core rule set, CRS. You will find the versioning like 2.29, 3.0, 3.1, and you can choose whichever you like. You can also have the custom rules there, because web applications are increasingly targets of malicious attacks that exploit common vulnerabilities. Common among these exploits are like SQL injections, cross-site scripting, there are many more. Okay. once we dig WAF solely in a single video, we'll go deeper. So for preventing such attacks, layer 7 attacks, we utilize WAF. Because preventing such attacks in application code can be challenging and may require rigorous maintenance, patching, and monitoring at many layers of the application topology. A lot of time and cost is involved, but if you're utilizing WAF, a lot of things would be easy. So a centralized web application firewall helps make security management much simpler and gives better assurance to application administrators against threats or intrusions. A web solution can also react to a security threat faster by patching a common vulnerability at a central location. At a central location. Because this can take care of all those what is there running at the back end because it is taking care of all the request, right? So existing application gateways can also be converted into WAF, enabled application gateway easily. So what all WAF can help us? It can help us protect multiple web applications simultaneously without modifying backend code because all these applications are at the backend of application gateway. This is the entry point where the web is sitting and doing all kind of monitoring. So we can also have customized web policies for different sites behind the same gateway as we talked about earlier. We'll talk about again. If you remember, we talked about site, multi-site. So if you have multi-site hosted there, so this is what we are referring to. So defend us against malicious bots using IP reputation rule set. It enhanced security with features like TLS policy management and end-to-end TLS support. Uh, but it is very big, huge topic. I think we will take some time and work on it. But yes, this comes with the application gateway, and we must have WAF if you're hosting any layer 7 workload. Now, another feature is we can utilize application gateway as ingress controller, which is AGIC. We have already created a lot of videos on AKS, almost 70 videos on AKS. You can check the playlist, and AGIC is also there. So what is AGIC? It is application gateway ingress controller, which allow you to use application gateway as the ingress for the AKS cluster. So people who are new, they can just simply understand it will help you expose your application to the internet. What application? Which is running on the Kubernetes. Just like here, applications are running here. We are exposing through this app gateway. In that, in the case of AKS, applications running inside the AKS and application gateway, which will run as a pod within AKS cluster, will help exposing application to the internet. All right, so if you're not able to understand what is this AGIC, don't worry. Okay, this is a topic of Kubernetes, and if you're new, then it is fine. You can check the AKS playlist in this channel, or it's fine. It's good to know that application gateway can be utilized as an ingress controller for Kubernetes. Don't worry if you do not understand what is AGIC right now. Just understand this is one of the feature that Kubernetes can Kubernetes ingress controller. It can act as an Kubernetes ingress controller. All right. Now the another feature is URL based routing. As we have already understood, when user try to access, the URL comes. If the URL has something like images or something like video, it will go to their respective backend pool because this is a smart load balancer. It works on layer 7. It can read, it can understand this, and accordingly it will send the or route it to the video server pool or image server pool, or it can send it to the default server pool if nothing if no pattern matches, right? That can also be done. So this is our URL based routing. Now, apart from this, there is something really interesting that we should be discussing. Let's say it is eighth feature, like too many features. not 7, but 8th. This is redirection. Okay. Now, what is redirection? The common scenario of many web applications is to support automatic HTTP to HTTPS redirection to ensure all communication between an application and its users occurs over an encrypted path. It is more like not everybody is typing HTTPS at abc.com. Some of them are like just typing HTTP and abc.com. In that situation, this request will go to front end, and if we have not made our listeners to listen on HTTP as well, this will drop, right? But if we have redirected, we have enabled the redirection from HTTP to HTTPS redirection. This is the redirection is happening, right? So this will help us. Redirection to ensure all communication between application and its users occurs over an encrypted path. Even if they are doing HTTP at the time, it will redirect and it will be HTTPS. Now, Application Gateway natively supporting this. But in the past, you may have used techniques such as dedicated pool creation, whose sole purpose is to redirect request that it receives on HTTP to HTTPS, right? A separate resources working to take care of that piece. Now, Application Gateway supports the ability to redirect traffic on the Application Gateway, right? So this simplifies application configuration, optimizes the resource usage, and supports new redirection scenarios, including global and path-based redirection. Yes. Application Gateway redirection support isn't limited to HTTP to HTTPS redirection alone. This is a very generic redirection mechanism, but you can also redirect from to any port or define using rules. It also supports redirection on external site as well, right? So redirection can be done on HTTP uh, protocol, you could say, port and external site as well. Yes, that can also be done. We can talk about redirection. I think maybe if all goes well, I will take one session on redirection. It's really interesting. Now another feature is session affinity that we have already talked about many times. But here is a little different than the load balancers session affinity because this one is cookie based. This is not on port protocol and IP address. This is cookie based. So these redirection is for this. All right, session affinity. Cookie-based session affinity feature is useful when you want to keep a user session on the same server. If somebody is accessing, the request will always go on a same server through cookies. So using gateway managed cookies, the application gateway can direct subsequent traffic from user session to the same server for processing. This is important in case where session state is saved locally on the server for a user session. We have already talked about a lot on session affinity in our previous video in this particular series, so we all are good about that. Now, another one, 10th feature, which is really interesting, which is WebSocket HTTP 2. Now, Application Gateway. Now, Application Gateway provides native support for the WebSocket and HTTP2 protocols. There is no user configurable settings to selectively enable or disable WebSocket support, right? So natively it support these two. Now, what are these two? Let's understand that. WebSocket is a fully duplex communication protocol. WebSocket, this is fully duplex communication protocol that allows continuous real-time data exchange between client and a server. All right, suppose this is a client, just for the understanding, this is server. Okay, now it is a full duplex communication protocol like this. and the real-time communication will happen. No need to go and say hello again and again, acknowledge and things like that. So real-time data exchange between client and server over a single long-lived TCP connection. Single long-lived TCP connection. This is what that TCP connection is. Okay, so WebSocket, and natively App Gateway supports it. Good for the performance, yeah. Now, unlike traditional HTTP, which requires a new request response cycle for each interaction, WebSocket enables bidirectional communication without repeatedly opening and closing the connection. That's the reason I just created this kind of uh, in my diagram, because it is bidirectional. But if it is HTTP, then it requires a new request response cycle for each interaction. Okay, but once the TCP connection is established, it's duplex. All right. So why do we need WebSocket? Well, it's I said real-time communication, right? So real-time applications like chat, live notification, financial stock tickers, those kind of application require it. And without WebSockets, app would have to use polling frequent requests to check for updates, which is inefficient and adds unnecessary loads on server. Now, all right, we understand that. What about HTTP 2? HTTP 2. Well, it is an improved version of HTTP 1. We could say improved HTTP 1 that makes web communication faster and more efficient. It allows multiple request and response to be sent simultaneously over a single connection and uses header compression to reduce the amount of data transferred. So why do we need it? As we are saying, it's a faster website and API performance. It reduces latency because it eliminates unnecessary handshakes and reduces the time required to load web pages. All right, it's more efficient resource utilization because it uses fewer connections and minimizes overhead, leading to better scalability. Right, and these two are supported by App Gateway by default if that is the requirement. All right, so what else is left? Well, I think we're almost done. Another one is connection draining. Well, as you can understand by the name, now we are draining. All right, connection draining helps you achieve graceful removal of backend pool members. Like if you like to remove this VM. Okay, so the graceful removal, like we'll not directly remove it, we'll stop it. Like all the existing connections, will wait for them to take whatever is happening should happen first and will not accept any more reaction. And once all is taken care of, then we'll gracefully remove it. Right, that is the connection draining. So this setting is enabled through the backend settings and it is applied to all backend pool members during rule creation. Once enabled, the application gateway ensure all deregistering instance of a backend pool don't receive any new request while allowing existing requests to complete within a configured time limit. So it applies to cases where backend instances are explicitly removed from backend pool after a configuration change by user or reported as unhealthy by the health prof, or if you need to do some kind of troubleshooting. Yeah. The only exception is when requests continue to be proxied to the deregistering instances, because application gateways, if you are thinking session affinity, then you are correct because it is patched already, like go to the same server again. All right, so the connection draining is honored for WebSocket connections as well. Connection draining is invoked for every single update to the gateway. uh, it prevents connection loss to existing members to the backend pool. Make sure to enable connection draining, right, if you'd like to prevent the connection loss. Then we also have one more thing. If something goes wrong, we can configure a custom error page with our brand name. Yes, Application Gateway allows you to create a customized error page instead of displaying default ones. You can use your branding and layout for errors related to different responses codes. For example, showing a maintenance or status page for 502 bad gateway response code. This is useful when your application gateway has no backend server to route traffic to during scheduled maintenance. So instead of going here, you have the request is coming here where we have our branded page showing maintenance. Right, we can showing a customized unauthorized access page for 403 forbidden response code that occurs when the WAF is in prevention mode and blocks malicious traffic. Traffic comes, it blocks, rather saying 403, better saying unauthorized access. Right. So showing a company branded page with contact details in case of any issue. And we can configure that where we configure the listener. We have listener type basic and multi-site. And below that we'll find customer error page, custom error page. So with this, we have covered almost all the wonderful features offered by Application Gateway. All those features which require a separate solely dig dive deeper kind of video, we'll definitely work on it. Well, thank you for watching, and you guys have a wonderful day. Bye bye.